to the Bowden Blitz SEC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, Conference Championship is on the line this coming Saturday afternoon in Atlanta. It's Alabama and Georgia, a rematch for the game that took place in Athens earlier in the year, where Alabama got the victory 24-21. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But we'll take a look at the updated national championship odds entering conference championship Saturday. You see it right there. Georgia at 8-1, Texas A&M at 12-1, Bama 14-1, and the Ole Miss Rebels minus Lane Kiffin sit at 27-1. Thoughts about the conference as a whole and what transpired last Saturday afternoon?
Well, I think Georgia has got themselves in a position to be the most favorable team in the conference. Alabama, with that great win in their conference rivalry, put themselves back in the hunt. And again, until we know whether they win or lose this conference championship game, they can either be in the playoffs or be sitting outside looking in. So it's they've got a big conference championship game for Alabama, because at 10-3, do they even get to the college football playoffs? So again, we've got a bunch of SEC teams, maybe more SEC teams than anybody else. I think they're going to be in the college football playoffs, but there's still some people on the bubble. Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, those type of teams are still on the bubble. And then Ole Miss, because of the coaching change, could they be on the bubble? We don't know that.
No, we don't. Now, we think that obviously an 11-1 football team with or without Lane Kiffin, their new head coach on an interim basis, defensive coordinator Pete Golden was announced in Oxford this past weekend. And obviously Charlie Weiss, now news came out, will be able to coach the offensive coordinator now of the LSU Tigers for 2026, will be able to coach for Ole Miss in a college football playoff matchup. That came out of LSU and Lane Kiffin today. So 27-1, do you buy in to Ole Miss? Obviously, we have to see how the committee puts them and ranks them, but they're most likely in the playoff. How much does the hiring of Lane Kiffin to LSU hurt this team in a playoff type of situation?
Well, I think it hurts some. I think obviously he was the head coach. He was the leader of their football program, and he's walked away and left. So that's going to have some kind of factor. I mean, the fact that Charlie Weiss, let's make this clear. Lane Kiffin doesn't call the plays. Charlie Weiss calls the plays. Lane Kiffin looks at the game plan sheet in front of his face and every now and then makes a suggestion, but Charlie Weiss calls the plays. And so that's important. But I do think that was Lane Kiffin throwing some crumbs to Ole Miss. I'll go recruit for LSU. I'll let you have my play caller for a game or two, so he might help you. But Charlie Weiss being there is important to helping them, because with him calling plays and their defensive coordinator still there, they still have a chance to play very, very well.
A huge hire for LSU. They got their guy, 7 years, $91 million. He is taking about 5 or 6 assistants with him from Ole Miss. We'll see exactly how he fills out the staff. LSU now more optimism than they had with Brian Kelly, obviously being fired after the loss to Texas A&M. Lane says it's the best job in college football. We'll see how long he stays in Baton Rouge. Can he make it through the tenure of the contract, right? That's been, a big cause of concern in every place he has coached, including Tennessee, USC, FAU, and now here with Ole Miss. So we'll see exactly how it transpires for LSU. A couple of other hires in the conference. Florida was thought to get Lane Kiffin, but they go and turn to Tulane head coach John Sumerall. This is a solid hire, coach. He's a blue-collar guy. You know him very well. Thoughts about John Sumerall? Can he take Florida back to the promised land in a college football playoff appearance?
I think they got the next best head coach available. John Sumerall, I coached against him 2 years at Troy. He goes to Troy as his first head coaching job, wins the conference twice. He goes to Lane, and he finds a quarterback that is the best quarterback in the conference and gets hired for $1 million to go to Duke, and then he finds another quarterback from BYU, and he does a great job then. So he's a defensive coach. He's a tough-minded coach. I thought he would be a perfect fit at Auburn, just knowing he's from Alabama. But I think Florida got an outstanding coach. He will be a tough nut that knows how to win football games.
And he came out and he already said he's not hiring friends to be assistants. He says he knows a bunch of assistants that are friends. You know, you have to be a certain breed and you have to be a certain culture to be hired on staff at Florida. We'll see how he fills out those needs moving forward over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Alex Golesh, the former USF head coach, there were rumors over the weekend that he had taken the job in Fayetteville for Arkansas. That's not the case. Ryan Silverfield gets hired out of Memphis to lead the Razorbacks in 2026. Auburn turns to a blue-collar guy in Alex Golesh. We saw DJ Durkin and Auburn go toe-to-toe with Alabama in the Iron Bowl. I can tell you one thing. Auburn's going to be very physical on both sides of the football next season.
Yeah, I love this hire. I really do. I mean, to put born in Moscow, Russia, first Power 4 head coaching job in Auburn, Alabama, it just doesn't how could you have picked that? He's a tough guy. Yeah, he understands, and they need offense. If he can lock up a deal, and I've heard yes or no on DJ Durkin, the defensive coordinator. And remember, when I went to Auburn from Samford University, I retained the defensive coordinator, and we won 20 straight games by not messing up what was already working well. It would be good if he could hire Durkin. I don't know the final answer because their defense against Alabama, against the entire season, was playing very well. Good hire for Auburn. He'll get used to the city. They'll get used to him. And I want to know more about him. It's a fascinating background. He is a tough guy that fits Auburn's personality, and he was smart. He said, what are we going to do? We're going to run the damn ball. That's what Auburn wanted to hear.
Absolutely. He's a New York guy, lived in Brooklyn for a period of time,
right.
and, really elevated USF on both sides of the football. Blue-collar team. They knocked off Florida earlier in the season, 18-16, knocked off Boise State as well, basically as a 6.5, 7-point underdog, beat them down when they were ranked 25th in the nation week number 1. So this is a team that's going to be prepared. They're going to play defense. We know they have that already. I think the biggest question is, can he keep Deuce Knight? Can he keep some of the younger talent on that staff and on that roster moving forward? Are players going to want to play for Alex Golesh, or are they going to go to a more flashier, high-profile type of offense like LSU or maybe like Florida? That is, I think, the one concern that Golesh has, keeping the talent on both sides of the football on the Plains.
Yeah, but you know what? If he could keep Durkin, that would keep a lot of those defensive players. If they could keep Ashton Daniels or Deuce, the quarterback Deuce Knight, he's got quarterbacks for now and the future, and the portal will bring in the rest of the guys. A great defensive coordinator. If he can keep his kicker, his quarterbacks, and a great defensive coordinator, and the NIL portal transfer, they can really be right there competing right away. Because remember, in this bad year for Auburn, they were just 1 4th and 2 on the goal line away from possibly beating Alabama. And so they're not terribly away from competing for the conference championship. So again, we'll see how the defensive coordinator happens, and from there, see if he can keep those quarterbacks, both of them, hopefully.
Absolutely, and we'll see exactly how it plays out for Alex Golesh. His teams are disciplined. Can the money flow on the Plains to maybe open up some big quarterbacks to potentially transfer to the Tigers? We'll break it down throughout the offseason. When we come back, we'll recap week number 14 in the SEC right here on the Bowden Blitz. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden recapping week number 14 in the SEC. Left off talking about the hiring of Alex Golesh to Auburn. We'll take a look at the Iron Bowl. It was a 7:30 kick on the Plains. Auburn opened up as a 5.5-point underdog. We saw 6.5s inching up to kickoff time. Alabama built a 17-0 first half lead, Coach. It looked like the Crimson Tide were going to blow out the Auburn Tigers, but we know these Iron Bowls are crazy. It was deadlocked at 20 in the fourth quarter, facing a 4th and 3 from basically the 5-yard line. Alabama rolls the dice, goes for it. They score the touchdown on the ensuing drive. Auburn fumbles and game is sealed. Alabama wins and covers. Thoughts about Kalen DeBoer and Alabama winning, but rolling the dice on that fourth quarter, fourth down play?
Hell of a call. I don't even think it was I'm not sure it's the right call. I mean, field goal ahead. Auburn hasn't scored a lot of points. You've got the game won with a field goal. If you don't get it, you're going to go to an overtime where anybody could win. But he scored and won, and they won the game. So it was a great call. Regardless, it was a gutsy call. Whether it was good or bad, gutsy call. And it made the difference as Auburn came back, drove the ball down the field, and fumbled in Alabama territory to lose the game. But you know what? Alabama played their rival, their hated rival, on the road in a hostile environment and won the game. They deserved that because that's what they did. They started strong. Auburn got off to a slow start but came back. So Alabama did what they had to do in a rivalry, and I've coached in it. It's a hard game to win at Jordan-Hare when you're Alabama, and now he's got the win, and he's got the championship game. And I just think Alabama did what they had to do in a very tough environment.
And Ty Simpson had a good performance, but not a lead by any yardage type of standpoint. He only throws for 122 yards, but 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The defense was able to force the turnover on the final drive. Ty Simpson, steps up in a big spot, Coach, right? That's the biggest thing. We have been very, very critical about Alabama not being the same rushing attack. They pounded the rock for 158 yards on the ground. This wasn't the same type of defense in run support. They had to make plays. They did it. And again, if Kalen DeBoer potentially loses that game, any shot that maybe he wouldn't be the head coach of Alabama moving forward?
Well, not this year. I don't think it was too late. But he would be on the hot seat. Auburn out-statisticed Alabama in every category. Except turnovers, they did everything they could to beat them in every way. But again, I think Ty Simpson showed how athletic he is. When you watched him scramble, when you watched him run for first downs, you really saw a lot more talented quarterback than I really thought he was. But again, I don't think DeBoer loses that game. He's probably good in the hot seat because he hadn't done anything yet. Let me tell you this. If he plays the conference championship and loses, and at 10-3 doesn't get into the college football playoff, he's on the hot seat again. That's where he went. That's what he got when he went to Alabama.
Yeah, and we'll see exactly how that transpires. It'll be a rematch of the game earlier in Athens that Alabama snapped Georgia's 33-game home winning streak. They won that matchup 24-21. We'll take a look at Georgia's performance. It happened on Friday afternoon. They laid a huge number against Georgia Tech. They won but did not cover. It was an ugly type of blue-collar, low-scoring game. But they did what they had to do, and the defense shut down one of the most prolific athletic quarterbacks in Haynes King. This was an offense that entered the ballgame averaging well over 200 rushing yards per game. Georgia's front seven shut them down, and, Coach, they were never threatened in this matchup. They win it by a touchdown, 16-9. We've talked about the offensive side of the football for Georgia, but it's the defense now that is starting to trend into championship form.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. Everybody looks at that score and said, boy, Georgia did not do enough to impress anybody. They had to kick 3 field goals and only 1 touchdown But look what they did to Haynes King. Look what they did to that offense. Look how strong they were against a very good offensive team, and they won. And it was a rivalry game. Now, this is a game that went 8 overtimes last year, a totally different football game. And they did not impress anybody with their offense. And I would say if you're watching Georgia through the playoffs, you got to asterisk that offense. Is this offense good enough? But I will say this, they dominated a very good quarterback. He had probably his worst game of the year, and they found a way to win a football game. It never seemed as close as the score indicated.
23 carries, 69 yards, and only 3 yards per carry for Georgia Tech in this matchup, Coach. They never threatened Georgia on the perimeter. Haynes King kept well under his season average, only had around 30 rushing yards in that performance, and really never threatened Georgia over the top with the passing attack. When you look at Gunnar Stockton and you look at this offense, do you believe they're as complete potentially as some of the other teams that could make the college football playoff, including Alabama and even Ole Miss at this standpoint?
Make the playoff. But after watching Oklahoma on offense and Georgia on offense, my latest impression's not good. But I still think they play great defense. They did run the football well. And I think Georgia against Alabama, and we're going to talk about this later, they'll run the football, and the running will be better in the second half. And that's going to be their strength. The defense is getting better. They still run the football, and that's what you've got to do in the postseason playoff.
We'll see exactly how it plays out. We'll also break down the LSU-Oklahoma game. That game went right down to the wire. John Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners did pull it out against LSU. They won, but didn't cover 17-13. When we come back, we'll break down the LSU-Oklahoma game, and we'll turn our attention to an early preview of Georgia-Alabama in Atlanta SEC Championship coming up next. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down Week 14 recaps. We talked about LSU and Oklahoma, John Mateer and the Sooners. All they had to do was win, baby. They laid 10.5 points to Frank Wilson and the LSU Tigers. This was a very close game in the first half. It went right down to the wire, but Mateer was able to make enough plays in the passing attack. They pull away in the fourth quarter and win it by 4 points. 17-13, Coach. I think Oklahoma's done enough body of work to win over Alabama. I think they're in the college football playoff.
No, I think you're exactly right. They did enough for that. Have they answered some questions about how far they can go? I'm not so sure. Offensively, they just don't do enough. But, man, defense is so good. And defense is the most important thing this late in the season. But LSU game, neither team looked good. It was a very ugly football game. But, to beat LSU late in the season with the talent that they have, I think Oklahoma, and then I think their quarterback threw 3 interceptions. And so they didn't play the best game in the world, and they still won the football game against a team that may not have a great year but has great talent. And so good win for Oklahoma. I think they're in. I think to get the home field first game that they play. And then we'll see where they go from there. But they've got to play better offense to have any chance of progressing in the playoffs.
We talked about earlier in the show, LSU will have Lane Kiffin on the sidelines. There's a lot of young talent for LSU. We'll see if they stay to really even out this roster for 2026. We'll take a look at the title game. It's a rematch, Alabama and Georgia. It's Gunnar Stockton taking off against Ty Simpson. Something has to give. rematch, you always go with potentially the team that lost, and that's why we're seeing Georgia as a 2.5-point favorite on a neutral field. It's predominantly going to be maybe a Georgia crowd in Atlanta. Total is set at 47.5. This game was a dead under last year. This was the game where Carson Beck got hurt at halftime and Gunnar Stockton came in to lead the Bulldogs to the win over Texas. Can he do it again starting this matchup in a rematch type of situation, Coach?
No, man, what a game this is, because it is a critical game for Kirby Smart. He's not done well against Alabama. Again, most of those losses to Nick Saban, but Kirby Smart won twice last year. And it's a big game, but I do believe in the value of going with and picking the team that lost the first game. As long as it's a close game and both teams are even, my money goes on the team that lost the first game. I've just seen it happen over and over again. I don't think you beat a team twice that's about as good as you. That being said, Georgia must get off to a good start. They got off to a terrible start last year, a terrible start this year. They've got to keep it even at half, because I think if they do keep it even at half, the running game will pick up, and it will begin to dominate, and they will win as they have done all year by having a great second half and having a running game.
Now, when you talk about the rushing attack and running game, Georgia rushed for 190 yards on Georgia Tech, 4.1 yards per carry. In the first matchup in Athens, they put up 227 yards on the Alabama front seven, averaged 6.8 yards per carry. This is an offense that's averaging well over 190 rushing yards per game, and that could take the pressure, to your point, off of Gunnar Stockton. That could lead them into short third downs, makeable third downs, and as long as they can move the chains, you keep Ty Simpson in the more explosive offense potentially on the sidelines, right, Coach? More pressure on Georgia or Alabama? Curious, because obviously you mentioned Alabama, but Kirby, to get this win over Alabama would be great momentum for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, that's more pressure on Alabama than Georgia. Yes, if they don't win this game, what happens to Alabama? But as a personal coach, a head coach, more pressure on Kirby Smart. How long do you lose to Alabama, and how often do you lose to Alabama before Georgia fans start thinking you can't beat Alabama? So I think from a head coaching standpoint, he ain't sleeping very good. From a standpoint of which team needs the win the most just to keep the thing going, Alabama, obviously, because Georgia is in the playoffs, win or lose.
Traditionally, the SEC championship is led to higher scoring games, even though last year was a dead under. The 47.5 potentially has life this coming Saturday afternoon at 3:30 in Atlanta. Coach and I will be on later in the week breaking down a deeper dive of the SEC championship. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you later in the week.